Antarctica is the most isolated place on Earth. It is larger than the United States and Mexico combined. It holds 70% of the world's fresh water locked inside its ice. It is a continent where the wind can reach 200 miles per hour and where winter temperatures drop low enough to freeze exposed skin in seconds. It is also, by most accounts, a dead place. No trees, no rivers, no cities, no history worth speaking of. That is what we assumed. And that assumption, it turns out, was completely wrong. In September 2025, a team of researchers published a paper in the journal Nature Communications. They had spent a decade analyzing data from a European Space Agency satellite called Cryosat, a machine designed to measure tiny changes in the height of Antarctica's ice surface from space. What they found beneath that ice was not what anyone expected. Not one hidden lake, not 10. 85 previously unknown lakes discovered in a single study, bringing the total number of confirmed lakes beneath Antarctica's ice to 231. These are not frozen lakes, not lakes covered in ice. These are liquid lakes, bodies of water, some of them the size of cities, sitting in total darkness several kilometers below the surface of the ice sheet, kept liquid by heat rising from deep inside the Earth. And they are not sitting still. The satellite data showed that these lakes fill and drain on cyclical schedules. Some of them drain completely and refill. Some of them have been doing this for longer than human civilization has existed. 5 of the newly discovered lakes are connected to each other, part of an underground network, moving water through channels and pathways that no human has ever seen. Scientists described the subglacial hydrology, the underground water system of Antarctica, as far more dynamic and interconnected than anyone had previously thought. What that means, in plain terms, is this. Beneath the ice of the most remote continent on Earth, there is an entire hidden world. Rivers that flow in darkness, lakes that breathe in and out like lungs. A system so complex that a decade of satellite observation only just began to map it. And that is only one layer of what has been found. In June 2026, just days ago, as of this recording, a team of researchers from Durham University published findings in the journal Nature Geoscience. They had been studying the bedrock beneath East Antarctica, the ground underneath the ice itself. What they found was a structure no one knew existed. A giant fan-shaped network of hidden basins, enormous geological formations concealed beneath ice that is nearly 2 miles thick in some locations. To put that in perspective, the Empire State Building is about 1/4 of a mile tall. The ice above these structures is 8 times that height. For the entire history of Antarctic exploration, no one knew this structure was there. The researchers described the finding as a previously unrecognized connection between some of the continent's largest buried landscapes. Features that scientists had studied individually for decades turned out to be part of one massive geological system, connected at a scale that rewrites the basic map of the continent's interior. The shape of that bedrock, it turns out, influences how the ice moves across the entire continent today, which means that everything scientists thought they understood about Antarctic ice behavior, including projections for sea level rise that affect every coastal city on Earth, was built on an incomplete picture. We were measuring the surface. The real story was 2 miles below. Now, here is where the story gets genuinely difficult to process, because these discoveries, the hidden lakes, the underground rivers, the buried geological network, are extraordinary on their own terms. But they are not the most unsettling thing scientists have found beneath Antarctica. For that, we need to go back to 2020. A team of researchers from Germany and the United Kingdom was working near the Pine Island Glacier in West Antarctica. They drilled a sediment core from the seafloor, essentially pulling up a long cylinder of material from deep beneath the seabed. One section of that core caught their attention immediately. The color was wrong. Instead of the gray-brown sediment they expected, this section was different. Strange. The team CT scanned it. Inside, they found something that took a moment to fully understand. A dense, intact network of fossil roots, 3 meters long, so well preserved that under a microscope, individual cell structures were still visible. 90 million years old. They found the remains of a forest, not fragments, not trace evidence, an actual preserved forest soil, roots, pollen, spores, from trees that grew near the South Pole 90 million years ago, when dinosaurs still walked the Earth. The pollen and spores were analyzed in detail. What they revealed was a climate so different from what exists today that researchers struggled to model it. During the mid-Cretaceous period, West Antarctica had an average annual temperature of around 54 degrees Fahrenheit. Summer temperatures reached 66 degrees. The rivers and swamps that ran through the forest reached 68 degrees. This was not a tundra. This was not a sparse, scrubby landscape surviving at the edge of what was possible. This was a dense, temperate rainforest, similar to the forests of New Zealand today, growing within 900 kilometers of the South Pole. For decades, the assumption among scientists was that the polar regions were simply too dark. Too many months of low light or no light at all for complex forest ecosystems to thrive. This discovery meant that assumption was wrong. The forest existed. It thrived. It covered a continent that today is buried under miles of ice. Something happened to it. In 2025, a second team returned to the same region and drilled again. This time, they found amber. Antarctic amber, tree resin from those same ancient forests, preserved in a layer of brown, coal-like material embedded in the seafloor sediment. Amber is significant because of what it can contain: pollen grains, insect fragments, microscopic traces of the atmosphere from the moment the resin hardened around them. The amber confirmed what the earlier discovery had suggested. This was not a brief, anomalous warm spell. This was a stable, functioning ecosystem. Forests with insects, with flowering plants, with the kind of biological complexity that takes millions of years to develop. Researchers from the Alfred Wegener Institute described looking directly into environmental conditions that existed in West Antarctica 90 million years ago, through fossilized tree resin, found 2 miles below the surface, at the South Pole. Let's be precise about what this means. Antarctica today is a frozen desert. It has been covered in ice for roughly 34 million years. Before that, it had forests. Before that, it had rainforests near the pole itself. None of this is conspiracy. None of this is fringe theory. These are findings published in Nature, one of the most rigorous scientific journals on Earth, confirmed by multiple independent research teams across multiple years. What the discoveries collectively suggest is that the Earth is capable of changes so vast, so total, that an entire continent can transform from a dense forest ecosystem into a 2-mile-thick sheet of ice, and back again across geological time. The thing that existed in Antarctica 90 million years ago is gone so completely that it took a sediment core from the seafloor to prove it was ever there. And what exists in Antarctica today, the ice, the hidden lakes, the underground rivers, the buried geological networks, is itself a temporary state. How temporary, no one can say with precision. But the ice above those 231 hidden lakes is already moving, already filling and draining in cycles the satellite only just began to map. The bedrock beneath those lakes, the fan-shaped network of buried basins discovered just this year, influences how the ice slides and flows toward the ocean in ways that scientists are still working to understand. And beneath the Pine Island Glacier, in the sediment where those forest roots were found, the same glacial system is today one of the fastest changing places on the continent. Antarctica is not a dead place. It never was. It is a place where everything that once existed is still there, pressed down under miles of ice, waiting to be found by the right instrument pointed at the right place. 90 million years of silence. And we are only just learning how to listen.